ranking all the Legion traits for Horus Heresy 3.0, the Raven Guard. Just a foreword before we get started, Legion traits, Legion-specific reactions and the like are now under the umbrella term of Rites of War, with things like the old 2.0 Rites of War no longer being a thing in 3rd edition. Gone the way of the dodo along with Warlord traits. Instead, each Legion has a Rite of War, which includes their Legion trait, their Gambit, the special challenge gimmick they can do, and any special detachments they have, as well as their advanced reaction. And included in this overview, I'll also cover their armory and their prime slot benefit. Also, the following rules are from the leaks, so there may be some missing information or tweaks once the full rules come out. If so, I'll pin any corrections or updates in the comments below. Now with that out of the way, my name is Mechanid. Let's get started. The Raven Guard, Shadow Walkers. The Raven Guard possessed an innate ability to go unseen, a talent beyond the fieldcraft skills that were indoctrinated into every legionary warrior, becoming one with the shadows and hiding even their armoured forms from the sight of their enemies. The Legion trait. Raven Guard models are harder to hit with shooting attacks made at long range. When a unit, including only models with this special rule, is the target of a shooting attack, all attacks must be made as snapshots when the distance between the closest model in the attacking unit and the target unit is 18 inches or greater. Gone is the modular Talons, Falcons and Hawks trait, and instead is one of the best defensive buffs a Legion could have. In 3.0, snapshots are less crippling as, instead of as always requiring a 6+ to hit, it is now tied to your ballistic skill, with ballistic skill 4 and 5 hitting on a 5+, ballistic skill 6 and 7 hitting on a 4s, ballistic skill 8 and 9 hitting on a 3s, and ballistic skill 10 hitting on a 2. There are also some extra stuff with critical hits, but we're not going to go into that now. What this means is that Space Marines are going from hitting you on 3s to hitting you on 5s. This cuts shooting output by a third, and means your Raven Guard are going to be able to dodge way more shots than before. And because this isn't restricted to just infantry, it's any Raven Guard model.
Except vehicles.
Provided all models in the squad are Raven Guard, your Terminators, your Dreadnoughts are now all so much more durable. This trait will also disproportionately affect non-Space Marine armies. Astartes have an army-wide ballistic skill 4 or better, but armies like Solar Auxilia or parts of the Mechanicum army have lots of ballistic skill 3. As such, Raven Guard armies will be even harder to fight if you are running either of those less accurate armies. Especially in those long-range engagements, such as sniper duels, tanks trading fire, the Raven Guard are going to be really hard to shift. This trait will feel especially strong in low-volume, high-quality shooting attacks, such as groups of 10 or less las cannons, or small sniper teams where you only have 5 or so nemesis bolters. Furthermore, this trait will force your opponent to get in close, into that 18-inch envelope where they can actually land their shots accurately. This is the perfect range for fast movers like Dark Furies or any weapon skill 5 unit of veterans to get in close and go to town. This trait is great. The Gambit. The Decapitation Strike. Now this is really good. When you select this Gambit, instead of making any attacks normally, and instead of making a focus roll, the roll off to see who gets to strike first in the challenge, you can instead make a single attack after your opponent has made their focus roll. If you fail the to hit or to wound roll, nothing happens and your opponent gets to strike back. But if you can land that strike and kill your opponent first, you don't even have to fight the challenge, you just get the kill straight away. This lets you live out your anime dreams of telling your opponent that they are already dead and sheathing your katana only to have their head fall off and their body crumple to the floor behind you. Even just having the threat of this Gambit up your sleeve will give your opponents pause for thought. There's always a chance that the Raven Guard player can just kill me before I get a chance to fight. However, it is a big risk. You're betting everything on a single dice roll. But if you can pull it off with a high damage or really good AP weapon, or just against an already wounded character, this Gambit will let you whack your opponents before they even realized it. The Advanced Reaction, Shadow Veil. Costing 1 reaction allotment, you can trigger this reaction when an enemy targets a unit that is all Raven Guard and is not a vehicle with a shooting attack. When you trigger this reaction, you can move all models in a unit a number of inches equal to their initiative characteristic, but may not increase it by a rush move, i.e. a run move. If all models are outside the line of sight / range of any enemy model in the attacking squad, then the shooting attack fails. Then you also gain a 5+ shrouded damage mitigation save on top of that. Then your opponent resolves their shooting attack. This is a phenomenal reaction, and getting to potentially negate a full volley of shooting by dipping out of line of sight is massive, but you don't even need to do that. If you can just hop back outside that 18-inch bubble and force your opponent to resolve their shots as snapshots, you can still hamstring that volley by just forcing the snapshots. And to top it all off, you get a 5+ shrouded save on top of that in case any wounds actually sneak through. This is a great reaction, and when timed right, can be absolutely backbreaking. Not to mention that you can also use this reaction to shunt forwards to make your next charge even easier, or to get into the ideal range with things like melter guns. So this reaction has both offensive and defensive applications. This is going to be a great reaction for really talented and daring commanders to use. All good there. The additional detachment. The Decapitation Cadre. Not much to say about this auxiliary detachment, as while it doesn't include any prime slots, so you can't farm any extra benefits there, it does give you 2 recon slots, which can be used for things like recon squads, saber tanks, and outriders, and 2 elite slots, which in this detachment are restricted to veteran squads or Dark Furies, which are restricted to veteran assault squads or Dark Furies. This is a perfectly fine detachment, as it doubles down on what you want to do with your Raven Guard. Use high quality, long range shooting to cripple your foe, and when they close in, intercept them with fast moving jetpack melee troops. And giving you more slots to do that is far from a bad thing. Pretty good. Armory. While not as extensive as other legions, the Raven Guard have some great tools. Any model with the command subtype, think Centurions and the like, can swap their Lightning Claws for Raven's Talons for free, or swap a pair of Lightning Claws for a pair of Raven's Talons. Raven Talons strike at initiative, with the same attacks and the same strength as the user, at AP 3 and damage 1. Impact IM, which gives you +1 to the noted stat, so in this case +1 to your initiative modifier when you charge. It also has Rending 6+, and Breaching 6+, and a pair of Talons give you an extra +2 to your attacks. Costing the same as your Lightning Claws, there's no reason to not upgrade into Raven's Talons, even if the Raven Talons are only giving you the extra +1 to your initiative on the charge because of that impact rule. Rending is now an auto wound, and counts as having rolled a 6, and Breaching turns any roll of the desired result, so in this case 6+, and makes that attack AP2, so a 6+ to hit with the claws is now an auto wound at AP2. Pretty good. The Raven's Talons are excellent at shredding infantry, but you'll struggle when you run into hard targets, anything with an armor value of 2, as you'll be having to fish for those 6s. Bully power armor and down infantry, and to stay away from anything like Artificer armor and Terminators. Next, the Corvid Pattern Jump Pack. Any model with the Raven Guard trait from the following list can take a Corvid Pattern Jump Pack for 10 points. A Praetor, Centurion, or Opte with a Jump Pack, or a Moriatat. The Corvid Pattern Jump Packs sets your movement to 14 and grants you bulky 3 and lets you automatically pass dangerous terrain tests. This is pretty good. Though it does add more onto the cost of existing jump packs, I'd argue that it is worth it to insulate your character against accidents when landing or setting off from dangerous terrain. Just note that only 4 models can get this jump pack, so its benefits won't be shared by any jump pack squads they join, except for Dark Furies, so just bear that in mind. The Prime Slot Benefit. Wraiths. If a unit contains only models with the Raven Guard trait and has the Troops Battlefield role is selected to fill a Prime slot in the Force Organization slot, you can opt to take this Prime advantage. A unit with the Wraith's Prime benefit can opt to make a Willpower check, so a leadership check using their Willpower stat, after the unit makes a Rush move, which is just a run move. If you pass the check, any charges made against the squad that has passed the check are disordered. Now if you fail the check, you become stunned instead. This is an incredibly niche Prime benefit, and the only use I can really see for it is on a squad that you are pushing way up into the teeth of the enemy, probably onto an objective. You push up, pop this to give you some extra defense in melee, as your opponent won't be getting all their bonuses from charging in because they are now disordered. However, I'd bet that the amount of times you actually use this is almost 0, especially with the chances of becoming stunned if you fail the roll. I would much rather have a Prime benefit that is always on, or one that gives me just a flat buff that can't be turned off. For example, the Logistical Benefit, which can let you add any one battlefield roll of your choice to the detachment and does not require a willpower roll to activate. So I would pass on this Prime benefit. Comparisons. Going from 2nd to 3rd edition, the Raven Guard have lost their modular trait and gained an excellent defensive trait. Now I understand what the designers are intending to do to represent the stealthy and clandestine nature of the Raven Guard, but I think they've gone about this in all the wrong ways. Why not give them something like a shrouded save at range, or better yet, keep the modular trait, which really represented the combined arms spec ops element of the Force. The Raven Guard are much more than just sneaky boys, and they have some excellent melee combatants, and I don't think it's fair to pigeonhole the Sons of Korax just as stealthy sniper legions, which I think this trait really does by encouraging them to dig in and gunline. This is because I think this trait encourages them to dig in and play the game of keep away, rather than getting in close or having multiple units that could all fill those different roles very well. This trait doesn't do anything to support things like Dark Furies or Deliverers or any of the close-in troops, except for those scenarios where they're charging across the battlefield, but even then, once they get in close, they're on their own. Now, while this is a massive buff to shooting defences, this for me is a downgrade in flavour and does a poor job of representing the multifaceted nature of the Raven Guard. Also at this early stage, I think this is easily one of the best traits and is going to be a tough act to follow. Conclusion. Just for the Legion trait alone, the Raven Guard earns an easy S tier, with everything else cementing their position as a very strong starter for this edition. Raven Guard gunline armies are going to be a tough nut to crack, as you'll need to get in close to them to even be able to land a shot. I'd expect to see a few nasty Raven Guard shooting castles in the coming years, with heavy support squads stacked with las cannons, backed up by snipers, and with just a few Dark Furies ready to intercept anyone who gets close. If you are going to shoot them down, I'd recommend dropping a great big bomb on them, because as we all know, the top predator of a crow is a howitzer. What do you think of the Raven Guard rules, and which legion should we look at next? Stay tuned for more. My name is Mechanid. Thanks for watching. Equal to their initiative characteristic, but may not increase.
Unknown caller.
Fuck's sake.